Welcome to In Talks with, I'm Danielle. Joining me as a guest on this episode is Ilse Cornelissens, the founder of one of my all-time favourite destinations, Graanmarkt 13 in Antwerp. More than a concept store, it is a reflection of Ilse and the world she inhabits. The elegant five-storey 18th century townhouse, which Ilse and her family live in, looks onto a historic market square, which is surrounded by grand houses and the imposing Bourla Theatre. Since the early 16th century, the urban square called Graanmarkt, which is located in the historic centre of the city, has been a well-known marketplace which still operates today. Ilse and her husband opened the shop in 2010 with the help of architect Vincent Van Duysen, and it sells a range of clothing, perfumes and homeware, as well as having a restaurant in the basement and a terrace for sitting on in the square when the weather is fine. I sat down with Ilse to hear about her refreshing approach to retail, her journey to getting Graanmarkt 13 up and running, and to hear about why, for her, Antwerp has a magic that is deep-rooted in the creative scene. So hi, Ilse.
Hi, Danielle.
I'm really excited to be talking to you because you are the owner of a shop, which is maybe my favourite shop in the whole world, Graanmarkt 13 in Antwerp in Belgium. I wanted to start by asking you about Graanmarkt. I think that lots of people who listen to this podcast will know about it, and then maybe there'll be some people who've never heard of it or who have heard of it but would like to go. So maybe you could start by telling me a little bit about Graanmarkt and what it is.
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I must say that after each holiday when I come back, I always come back in and then I'm like, it's quite a nice place. So, no, Graanmarkt 13 is a place in Antwerp. It's an old townhouse that me and my husband bought, I think now 17 years ago. Graanmarkt was fully renovated together with Vincent Van Duysen. And Vincent Van Duysen was at that time maybe not as big as he is now as an architect.
He's a Belgian architect, correct?
Yes, he's a Belgian architect. And I think lots of people listening might know Vincent Van Duysen. And for us, it was a really great opportunity to work with him because at the time that we started Graanmarkt 13, we were 27 years old. So we were like green as grass coming from Amsterdam, and we moved to Antwerp, which was the place where I was born. And at the time, it was very difficult to find a place in Amsterdam to do what we were wanting to do. And Antwerp was, at that time, I think, maybe still sometimes a bit underestimated town. So we just moved to Antwerp and started looking for a beautiful place. And then we found this old townhouse, which was empty for 10 years. Nothing happened to here. There used to be a Chinese restaurant. And then after that 10 years, nothing happened in this building. And then we started working with Vincent, and it was such a great opportunity because he was definitely already in the world of everything from architecture to fashion to art so I kind of still see him as our master because we were young. I just finished my law studies and Tim finished his economic studies. So we were not at all experienced in the world of beautiful things. And for me, Vincent was kind of our master because we worked for 3 years with him to get this project finished. And we only left the facade and everything behind was renewed. And then we ended up with kind of a box for us to play with. And then we started playing.
So it's in a beautiful historic market square, which has these other beautiful grand houses around it. And it also has the Bourla Theatre. I think
Yes.
it still has a market. When I was there recently, there was a market taking place as well.
Yes, it's really known for the Saturday market where uh, there are many. It's more like a food market where you find every kind of food from Italian to Moroccan to Belgian to like the best cookies in town, and that's really something very known. A lot of people go to this Saturday market to do their groceries every week, and then well, the ones that love us, you definitely like to pass by Graanmarkt 13. And then on Sunday there's a bird market. It's really one of the most beautiful squares to me in Antwerp. Um, it's a
So
bit
it's
off beaten track for store to have a store because it's not a square where you have other stores. It's more like there's restaurants and bars and but not necessarily a store. So we are the only store on the square.
and when you enter the store, so I think is there 5 floors to the building?
Yes, the building has 5 floors. Well, when we were started working with Vincent, it was actually Vincent's idea to create an apartment upstairs because he said, "You're so unexperienced. We wanted to do a bed and breakfast upstairs with with a few rooms." And then he said, "But you don't know anything about having a restaurant. You don't know anything about running a store. Isn't it a little bit too much? Maybe you should just go and live there." And that so he kind of convinced us to create an apartment upstairs, and I think that's why Graanmarkt became such a personal place because it was the place where we live upstairs the first 5 years. And actually, we are living there again, so we came back. No, so this place it's our house, and Tim and I. Well, meanwhile, we have 3 children, but we started with one tiny little baby when we moved in here, and now we have 3 children and our dog, and it's just everything that we feel and experience in this building. It's kind of our way of life that we want to express. And that's why I call it like the box to play with, because we started playing because it's our life that entered into this building. And I think everything that we see, feel that is happening in the world or that is could fit in our lifestyle is something that can enter this building. So I think it's a very personal kind of place, from what you eat in the restaurant to what you wear and you see in the clothing and the beauty brands that we carry. I think it's all a reflection of our way of life.
And what are some of the brands that you stock? I know that when you walk into the store, you walk up a flight of stairs, and you're immersed in this floor selling fashion for men and women. Also, it sells interior decor pieces and perfume. What are some of the brands you stock, and what makes you choose to work with them?
Well, in terms of fashion brands, for example, we work with Sophie Door, which is a Belgian brand. We work with Extreme Cashmere, a Dutch brand. We work with Bernadette, also mother and daughter brand from Antwerp. Oralie, which is one of our newest babies in a way. And I think, well, that's in terms of fashion. And then, for example, the beauty brands that we carry are Perfume Age, and Santa Maria Novella, Suzanne Kaufmann. And interior wise, we carry a lot of objects also from especially Belgian designers. So we do things as Michael Verheijden, Muller van Severen, and a lot of things that were created also by ourselves. And I think the main goal of Graanmarkt is we don't really follow trends. I think it's more about kind of slow. It's a slow way of living, a slow way of fashion. And I think that's maybe the main thing that stands out of being Graanmarkt. We're not necessarily into having the newest of the newest all the time.
That makes sense. And do you try, and so you try and prioritize local brands or Belgian brands?
Yes, we do. Well, I think we don't limit ourselves to Belgian brands, because then I don't know. I also want to have the freedom to love beautiful things that are maybe not from Belgium, but we do carry a lot of local brands, and I think that's something that started especially when we made a big move 7 years ago, when we decided to never do anything on sales anymore with Graanmarkt. So we decided to stop doing sales already 7 years ago because, well, like many amongst us, especially in the fashion world, know that there is something wrong. And we knew it already, of course, many years ago, but we always thought like if we don't act, nothing really necessarily changes. And then our idea was,
so you're talking in that when you mention that you mean with regards to overproduction and waste?
yes. I think, well, it's in the end we don't really respect the whole chain because we just don't give it enough time. That's, I think, the main philosophy of Graanmarkt, that you can't really, if you after 2 months put already something on sale, or after 3 months. It even took like 1 year from designing to, well, if you look at the whole chain, what is happening to just bring one piece into your store, it doesn't really make sense to already devaluate this after 2 months. So, but then of course, when we decided to not follow this whole sales period anymore, of course, it was quite a challenging time because we were at that time carrying very big brands like Isabelle Marant and Marni. And of course, those were widely spread online with big online partners, which are, well, even starting more early with the sales. So then we decided to just stop with those big brands. And from that moment, very naturally, we just went to Belgian brands. And I think, well, especially a brand like Sophie d'Or is very, well, it's kind of unseasonal. And Extreme Cashmere, for example, it's just one size. It's seasonless. And I think it was a natural thing happening at the time. The brands that we took in at the time are maybe not about being the most fashion. It's not necessarily about fashion. It's just about having a beautiful material, or yeah. And so we just give it the time. So for example, when, I don't know, a very summery piece doesn't sell one summer, we always bring it back the summer after. And at least we feel that one piece should have the time of 2 seasons, 2 of the same seasons. What is maybe nice to tell as well is that we, from the moment that we stopped doing sales, we started doing a second-hand sale in our store. And meanwhile, this became very big. We're doing it every season.
Second-hand sale of what are you selling?
So we're doing each season, we're organizing a second-hand sale of our own clients' closets. So for 1 week, they can bring in their old clothes, maximum of 10 pieces, because otherwise we had people coming in with suitcases. But since we're doing it every season, 10 pieces is okay. And then they can bring in 10 pieces. And then for 2 days, we empty our full store and we only sell secondhand clothing of our own clients. And when they, for example, sell a dress for 100 euros, they will receive a voucher to spend in our store of 100 euros. So we kind of upcycle our clients' closets. And so we do have a period each season where you can find kind of nice treasures for very good prices. But it's this time secondhand and not discounted. And I think that makes a huge difference, especially in the minds of people. Because when I go back to the time that we still were discounting, people were always unhappy because they're always afraid that, I don't know, 1 week later it will be even more cheap. They buy things that they don't need. It's completely different mindset. And when we're organizing the secondhand sale, people really go out as if they found the most beautiful treasure. So they go out, they really go out happy, which is a huge difference.
You also sell online, correct?
Yes.
So, and is this secondhand sale, does that have any presence online, or is that something that you have to go into the store for?
Yeah, you really have to go into the store because it's such a short period of time. But of course, the week before, when everything comes in, we kind of post all the beautiful pieces on Instagram. So a lot of people, of course, try to get their hands on the pieces through Instagram. But we always say, like, no, you have to get in the line. And because everything that we post, of course, we really give people the chance to get their hands on it. So the ones who are not living in Antwerp, we always say, okay, after 10 minutes, we will get back to you. And if it's not sold after 10 minutes, then we will take it out for you. And then, of course, we can send it.
That sounds fair.
Yeah, we really want to make it a fair business because it's always, of course, the same pieces that a lot of people are dying for. And then we're like, yeah, no, it needs to stay fair.
And we didn't mention as well that there's an amazing restaurant in the basement at Graanmarkt 13.
Yes. Yeah, we have a beautiful restaurant and also a beautiful inner garden and outside terrace on the front. So it's really, I always call it, and especially, well, it's still raining outside, but especially in summertime, it feels like a little place as if you're in the Provence because there's beautiful green walls. And so our restaurant is based in the basement. We are giving very classical food at the moment. It's actually also a bit away from the trends of, there's a lot of things happening, of course, in food. And I think a lot of places at the moment are focusing on natural wines and I kind of call it a bit of a, how do you say, more sour taste. And we feel some kind of hunger to just normal classic kitchen with very round tastes that kind of remind us of how our grandmother cooked. And I do feel that this is something that is starting to miss. So that's something that we kind of want to bring back. So it's actually really classical kitchen, Mediterranean focused. And
delicious, and good wine as well. When I was there, I enjoyed the food a lot. And so Ilse, you're already obviously incredibly busy with running all of Graanmarkt 13, and you have a family and a dog. And I know you also are involved in a a clothing brand called Castle Editions, which you stock at Graanmarkt 13, and you are a business stakeholder or you're involved in some way. So tell me a bit about that.
Yes, that was kind of a bit of a side step that we made, because that already started also many years ago, but we met a good friend almost 10 years ago when he started this agency called Parrot Agency on our first floor. That was his first year that he started doing his agency, and we kind of offered him to start on our first floor. And he became, to me, one of the most interesting international fashion agents, and a good friend. And we always had some kind of, I don't know, a feeling like maybe we should do something together. And then there was a moment that he found an old fisherman's cloth on a friend of him wearing it. And it was made out of a oil-coated cotton. And the shape was so, like, if you would open it, it's almost like a child drawing. It's a very simple shape. And especially the fabric, we loved it. And then he said, do we have something here? And I said, yeah, why not? Why not? We do have something here. So we started a brand, actually, named Castle Editions, because we started creating this coat in Kassel in Germany, where there's a manufacturer making very, how do you say, technical clothing for policemen and firemen. So he was a specialist in very technical clothing, and he helped us making this coat. And it started from just one coat, and in two different fabrics, a rubber that we also found at Limonta, and the oil-coated cotton from Limonta. And then out of that, we just started a brand with just one coat. And now this is 4 years ago, or 5 years ago. And meanwhile, we became quite famous also for our pillow bag, which was just a simple, actually, pillow. And we created a bag out of that in the same fabric. And I think, it's a super nice project that we did. But meanwhile, there's another company and a fashion brand that really totally fits also in the world of Graanmarkt to me. The approach of Castle Editions is much more fashion.
We should say, by the way, you haven't named Joseph Cox. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
And he's actually from Kassel, I believe, originally. So there's a connection there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how Kassel started. And meanwhile, we are widely spread in many beautiful stores in the world. And we're working on our business to consumer business. And I'm very proud that I think that's something that I really always love to do. On the way, we've met so many interesting people by doing Graanmarkt 13. And I think very naturally, we sometimes just go into a collaboration. And I think that was so interesting to do. We also created perfume, for example, with Lynn Harris of Perfume Age. So I think whenever there's people on our path doing interesting things, we're kind of open to build something out of that.
I really like your approach to business. To me, it feels really modern and refreshing. But also, you've obviously got a head for business and a talent for it as well. Where did you study? Where did you get this? Where does this come from? This instinct?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I have a business instinct, but I do have an instinct, I think, to to find people around us that are talented in something. Because, for example, I studied law. I was not experienced at all in this whole world, but I think, of course, you always kind of have a nose, and I think that is also indeed a talent to bring people together, and to create beautiful things, and to see where the talents are of other people. And when you bring all those talents together, you can really create something beautiful. And I think that's especially in the beginning of Graanmarkt, when we started, with Vincent, and then Bob Verhelst, who's also an important person to us. He's a scenographer doing a lot of the fashion exhibitions in the fashion museum in Antwerp. And also from him, we learned a lot. And then we had our marketing company, Base Design, who created all these things with phrases, because we communicate in phrases signed by the address. And I think on the road, with everything that we've done, it's always about finding the talented people and bringing them together, and then beautiful things are created. And that's what we did with Graanmarkt, and that's also what we did with Castle, I think.
I love it in Graanmarkt when you mention those little phrases which you have all over the shop and the restaurant at various points, and in the restaurant that you get a little note that says "Tomorrow is so far away," which is such a nice thing to read when you're enjoying a relaxing meal, hopefully. But and what about in your upbringing? Were your parents business people? Did they encourage you in that line of work?
No, not at all. No, so it's really something. No, not at all. So, and the same thing for Tim. His father was a doctor, and his mother took care of the kids. And no, my stepfather was working for a bank, and my mother was taking care of us. So, no, not necessarily. But I do think in both our families, there is a sensitivity for certain taste. And I think that's something that you do learn from how you were raised. You learn about quality, and you learn whatever quality is, and we really try to give that to our kids as well. I'm always proud when they kind of eat something that is really not nice, and then they just don't eat it. And I'm like, okay, I'm actually very proud that you don't eat it. I think, I really like beautiful things around me. I like craftsmanship. And I think it's really nice to be able to raise our kids like that. Sometimes I do need to say, I'm like, I don't know if they realize how beautiful everything is around them, also in this building, but
they're very spoiled.
It's just home.
Yeah. So when they leave, they're going to be very shocked at how eating food that isn't beautifully made at Graanmarkt. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you spend time traveling? I suppose what I want to know is, where do you get your inspiration from? Do you go on trips, work trips to different countries or around the country to look at other things, or is it maybe museums? How do you decide what to stock?
Well, I think, of course, with our, how do you say, raising a little family, but now the kids are bigger. It's not that we necessarily, because Tim is not very much of a globetrotter, so he doesn't like to fly.
He's a homebody.
So we usually travel quite nearby to France and Italy and Portugal, and usually by car. And we love to just kind of go with the flow. We don't really like knowing everything up front. So we really love traveling in the car, and have a few addresses, of course, that I want to see, because I've seen them on Instagram, but in the end, I I also regret a little bit that it's working like that these days. I kind of regret that you can't, that most, that even at this time, everything that you see might be the first time on Instagram instead of in reality, which is to me, being so much sensitive for how senses work. I try to, yeah, also, sometimes just see wherever you end, and you don't need to be in, I don't know, that place because you're nearby. I kind of try to avoid a little bit of that, because then there's no surprise anymore in our lives. And I think especially running a store these days, of course, the brand mixes that stores usually have, of course, worldwide, also look like each other. It's a bit of a sad thing. And that's why I think also for Graanmarkt 13, we try to focus as much as we can on local brands, because I think that's kind of the role of having a multi-brand store these days. Because when people travel to Antwerp, they should feel surprised in a way. And that's what I really love. And I also get this feedback sometimes that they come in and they're like, it's really a surprising kind of brand mix. And I'm quite sure, because we don't do sales, that's what happens in a way, that you don't have the usual brand mix. And yeah, so that's, I think, my role. But of course, I can't deny that I see quite nice things appearing on Instagram, and then I would also refer to them.
What about the place that Graanmarkt 13 has in the city in Antwerp? Why, for example, did you not decide to open a concept or a multi-brand store in Amsterdam, where you spent so much time?
Because first of all, you need a big bag of money for it. And second of all, there's something in Graanmarkt that is kind of not easy to replicate, I think. Because it all started with this building, and since it is our home, and since it is such a personal place, I think it's not that easy to do that somewhere else. Because also the slow way of what Graanmarkt is, and this slow fashion, and this very deep rooted quality of Antwerp is, for example, not there in Amsterdam, in my opinion. So I kind of, Graanmarkt 13 started in Antwerp, it grew in Antwerp, but it's maybe not necessarily a place that could easily fit another city. Unless you would go big with, I don't know, a big investor that could make, then you can create hotels, and of course you can. But yeah, I think it's not, for me, this would always stay the laboratory, and the real, like the real Graanmarkt,
Would you be interested in growing the brand globally, scaling it up, as they say?
I would. And then the logic step for us indeed would be Amsterdam, because Amsterdam is also where part of our roots are. So, and where Castle Editions is based. So definitely.
Because Antwerp as well has such a strong fashion identity, a strong relationship with fashion and identity, a fashion identity, from the famous fashion designers it has produced, the likes of Raf Simons and Margiela, and it's got the amazing MoMU, the fashion museum. So I suppose is that something that you feel a part of, a kind of a style and fashion community based there?
Yeah, definitely. I really think that Antwerp is very much a city where there's a deep-rooted quality in a lot of things. And I think, for example, indeed, Vincent Van Duysen, Axel Vervoort, Margiela, they all, Ralph Simons, they all come from here. And I think they also, even if they were, they became so big internationally, all those people kind of stayed here. So it's such an important city, I think, also to be creative, because it has been for a long time. Now it's maybe a bit changing, but one of the cheapest cities worldwide, which opens, of course, a lot of space for creativity then, because then the creative people can stay, and I think that's why Antwerp is maybe a bit different than others. I can't, yeah, it's sometimes a bit difficult for me to explain, but there is something deep rooted in the creative scene here. You have the fashion school, which is a very important school. Yeah, and then you have the super nice art school. So there's a lot of room for creativity. First of all, because creative people can stay. And then even when they become the biggest in the world, they still stay, which means something to me.
Yeah, no, I love that. There's a sort of magic and a secret, there's a secret sauce. I know when I saw you in Antwerp not that long ago, I was asking you for tips on where to go shopping. And I did. I went to Hoban.
Yes.
Is that correct? Which I loved. And I enjoyed
Yes.
their selection of brands. You know, they've got a good selection of fashion by the row and Alaya. Could you share, as well as Hoban, I would love it if you would share any other tips for shopping, not necessarily just in Antwerp, but your favorite places to shop or browse.
Yes, well, that's also something that I'm kind of always proud of Antwerp, because there's a very nice mix of shops, and they all stand out in their own way. And I think we all have a kind of a great personality. So I always say one of my favorite shops in terms of interior shopping is Sola Shop. They have a lot of Japanese items that they find. And in terms of fashion, they sell Jan van Driessen. So it's more like this Japanese linen world to me, and very nice. And it's a bit off beaten track. And then you have the store Louis, which is already there for many, many years. And for me, is one of like the most pointu, that's how we say it here, pointu buyers in Antwerp. So I really love that store as well. And then you have Renaissance, which is like more fashion. There's many nice things. Do I have? The thing is that I don't shop that much, of course, because I have everything in our own store.
And you probably have very little time also as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I thank you so much for speaking of being busy. I really appreciate you taking a minute out of your day to chat with me and appear on the In Talks With podcast, because I know that my listeners will be so delighted to hear you here and hear more about Graanmarkt 13 and Castle Editions and everything that you stand for. So thank you so much, Ilse.
Thank you, Danielle. It was nice speaking to you.
You've been listening to In Talks with me, Danielle Redoitjen. The sound and theme music is by Woogie Productions and the artwork is by Patrick Waugh. If you enjoyed this episode, please pass it on to someone who you think might also like it. Please subscribe and leave a review. To pitch for guest ideas, you can DM me via my socials at Danielle Redoitjen. Thanks for listening.